Grandma Jean's my girl. She's my girl. And that house, I mean, I don't know, like, how, it's as if they just have Fox News streamed into that place. and God bless them. You know, I just, when I'm over, they've learned to turn it on to HGTV. That's more like the middle ground that we can all sort of, you know. But my grandma asked me once, in the way she does, we're not, in that house we don't really talk about feelings that much. You know, it's not that kind of jam. Unless I'm leading the conversation, that I make them talk about feelings, because we should talk about these things. My grandma looked at me once and she said, and it was about marriage equality, and she said, well, don't you think that the states should be able to vote? Doesn't that seem right? Like they can make up their own minds. And I stopped for a moment. And I'm so grateful that she was actually engaged in a conversation about it. And I looked at her and I said, Grandma, I don't think that we should ever be able to vote on bigotry. And she looked at me and she goes, I agree. But it was in that moment a willingness to not get defensive, a willingness to stay present, to allow my loving heart to guide this conversation, that I was able to see the innocence in her question.
Yeah.
And there's something that has happened, and I'm not sure if it's an extension of political correctness or just our fear, but we've become afraid to ask questions of one another, thinking that the wisdom that is required to move forward is just supposed to be inherent. And in essence it is, because love is our inherent truth. Love is pre-installed. The wisdom of the universe is within us, just as much in me as it is in Rabbi Lisa, as it is in Patsy. And yet, we've all had these beautiful, unique experiences, all of which contain its own narrative, and each narrative deserves to be heard. And it's the collective narrative that is going to move us forward to tomorrow. And so we have to learn each other's language.
Yes.
We have to be willing to ask the questions so that we can learn, so that we can support one another. You know, it is in this belief, this desire to be right, that we sacrifice relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And relationships is where God lives for us. This is where we experience God, is in the way we relate with one another. And so this new year, as we come to the end of a year, as we come to the end of a presidency, as we come to the end of what many people think is the end of hope. Well, you know what? I left hope long ago, because I traded it for some faith.
Yeah.
And some knowing. I know what is possible when the foundation we build a vision on is one of love. And I know that everyone is invited when we lead with love. And so I'm going to continue to cultivate my ability to look through the lens of love this year. I'm going to strengthen my discipline so that when I go into judgment or fear, I can remind myself what's really going on.
Yeah.
That the darkness fades in the presence of light. I'm going to lean into this community, because it is in these spiritual communities that we are reminded, we are uplifted, and we get to practice strengthening our ability to be compassionate, truly compassionate, and to practice true forgiveness, which is to own your power. True forgiveness is about standing in your own power. It's about recognizing that what you thought your brother did to you, he did not do. Though he may have hurt, he may have struck, he may have hit, he may have clawed, he did not take away your power. Your power is your responsibility.
Right.
And so we don't have to pretend that something didn't occur. And we can hold one another accountable, but we can forgive them and see them as innocents, because we get to decide who has control over our peace of mind. The President of the United States will not be a false idol. He will not have power over my peace of mind. I'm in charge of that. And we will cultivate, create, and express more light. And you know what we do? we pray for that man.
That's right.
We pray for that man.